Well, hey, how's it going? Welcome to a World Breach Report number 16. And I'm Sean from Sean Hunts Monsters. And this is the place where you can come to discuss the files that help you escape the cage that imprisons your mind. And thanks to gratitude for everyone who has shared, liked, and subscribed to the channel. You are helping against the forces of darkness. And as well, in this day and age, we need to get all the numbers we can together. So if you can like and subscribe, please do so. It's kind of funny. The channel changes. We're 16 episodes into this now, and it's an interesting sort of thing about this channel where it's a good way for me to just sort of talk to you. Not really like an influencer, but to think that I have a ton of influence is kind of a bit of an egotistical thing. You know, I think that there's a certain amount of, well, the world right now is kind of crazy. You know, at the time of this recording, I got my new haircut. You like that? It's pretty high and tight. It's my summer cut, because I'll tell you, I got hair like a beaver pelt, man. It's brutal. I mean, in the summertime, it gets to be pretty rough. But and now with this, I'm spending a lot of time. I just got myself a new job, which is a pretty physical job. So you wind up walking around and doing a lot of physical things, and your hair just kind of gets messed up, and you're under a ball cap most of the day. So you want to kind of keep yourself high and tight just for hygienic and speed reasons in the morning. Let me tell you, there's a lot of advantages to a high and tight flat top. If you've got the kind of dome that you can rock a flat top on, which just about anybody can, it's one of the world's most classic haircuts. I highly recommend it. You know, and look at me, I've got a head on me like a 50-pound marshmallow. If you had a choice between $1 million and my head full of quarters, go for my head full of quarters. But in this day and age today, I would think that now is a time to remember that serenity prayer. You know, God grant me to accept the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. You know, at the time of this recording, we got stuff is blowing up all over Mexico. Venezuela's going nuts. Cuba's now going nuts. We're rocking this war with Iran. Israel's heavily involved with a bunch of stuff within the United States. Alberta in Canada is talking about seceding. We just got the worst jobs report ever in Canada. The whole country is kind of like falling apart. Now they're talking about ramping up the military again. Oh, just in time. Good work with that one, guys. And you got to kind of wonder, like, what exactly is the point? You know, like, what's the idea here? What are you trying to do? And there's so many distractions. Like whenever we have a war going on, it's like there's so much dough that the spin doctors can spin into anything. It's like it's everywhere. No matter where you go, there's this constant distracting feed. And when there's nothing going on in the world, you know, influencers have to, go rooting through the older files and try to find things that they can talk about. But right now, I mean, it's a heyday, and everybody's getting just really overwhelmed with what's going on. And I wonder if that's by design, like you got to think how much of the world and all these events that are happening are actually what's important. Because it's like when COVID was happening, it was like the world changed after COVID. And that used to happen once every 10 years or so, you know what I mean? You had like, there was 9/11, and then there was like the economic crash. But now it seems like it's coming faster and faster and faster and faster. It's like the adage of the old man yells at the sky, but now you got that same sort of ghosty, shocked out thing going on with kids who are like 18, 19 years old, even younger. And suicide's through the roof. These kids are freaking out. They don't know. There's self-harming everywhere. Their sense of reality is slipping away. Sciences are under attack just about everywhere. If you have conviction in anything at all, if you believe anything at all and you have conviction in that, it's only a matter of time before somebody calls you an extremist. And the only science that's really not under attack, strangely, is archaeology. Isn't that crazy? Like you can say, oh, physics is all wrong and everything else is all wrong and biology is wrong. Yeah, all that stuff we were taught in school about, males and females, that's all wrong. It's all, different theories now and everything. That's all, this is all the new science except for archaeology. Definitely the pyramids are only like, 3,000-year-olds tops. And, the Incans built everything in 100 years. And, this crazy stuff. And eventually you start to feel pretty overwhelmed by the whole deal. And now more than ever is a time when I really suggest you take up meditation and reading. I think it's time for a change of screenery. I think you need to step away from the box. The idea of touching grass is, like go outside. Otherwise, you're going to wind up as some zizzy and doing crazy things, living in a box fan and killing people. That's not what you want to do, bro or sister. I don't think it's really something you want to do. And for me to even say that, it's crazy now, because there's people like, well, who are you to judge me? Well, we all judge. We all have discernment. Like, you have to have discernment every day. And I think we all kind of know that. One of the things about this channel is, it's a way for me to talk to you. And I don't mean like you, the YouTube world, which I suppose I am, but I mean you, the actual viewer, the guy, girl, person watching this, There's things that you can change in your own life that will drastically affect how you see the world. One of them is reading. And you're like, well, I only read fiction. Good, whatever, read whatever. It's the actual act of looking at those little dots on the page and having them make a voice in your head. That's what actually changes your brain. And of course, meditation is massive. And I'm guilty of this. My meditation schedule has fallen by the wayside a little bit because, again, started a new job, hence, sexy haircut. But, once things stabilize, because it's always hard when you start something new, you got to, you're juggling a lot of balls here. You're learning a lot. It feels like you're on course for those of us with a military background for a long time. And then eventually things level out. Your body stops hurting and you start kind of feeling, what's going on. You can actually do things after work rather than just come home and die. So it's a good time to start thinking about like what kind of a person you're going to choose to be. And this is an idea that I've talked a lot about and I've written a little bit about, called living on purpose. And living on purpose is, I think, the future. I think that's where you need to be. Instead of seeking for validation from other groups, because that's what you do. You get into something and you're like, well, I'm going to go find a group to believe what I believe in. Well, there's lots of people in books who believe what you believe in. So you don't be so keen to seek validation from the group. Like, don't do that. It's not good for you. And invariably, if you wind up following a group, all groups are going to have leaders, they're going to have social hierarchies and dynamics, and before you know it, you just become a number in another group. And that's not something that I would want for anyone, most of all you, because I think that we're all, as I've said before, we're kind of sovereign, aren't we? You're sort of supposed to be sovereign over yourself. You're supposed to make up your own mind, and if nobody agrees with you, that's okay, provided you got some kind of logic here. If you're reading a bunch of data and you're not really sure, like for myself now, I'm pretty sure about this world breach thing. Steven Spielberg's got his Age of Disclosure Day coming out, his new movies by Spielberg, where they've got, it looks like the guy who used to be in Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Darcy there, he's the new bad guy. I think he's the bad guy. I'm just going for my vibes from the trailer. It looks pretty good. But, there's some remote viewing stuff going on there. And, of course, the CIA is the bad guys and blah, blah, blah. It looks that way. I don't know if I'm right. But it's interesting now that with all this stuff that's going on, both in the UFO world and then you got the wars, there's just so much stuff that we cannot change. So much stuff, yet it occupies our life. And whenever you get together with people in any kind of a group, they always have the same sort of fallback, safe things they talk about. Like it used to be that you get together in groups with people, and I'm in Canada now, okay? So Canada's under its own problems. Like we could just have the worst job report ever. Alberta's threatening to separate. Quebec's been talking about separating for as long as I can remember. Things are pretty rough. And then this recent, jobs report came out. It's all pretty horrible. The world's falling apart. Oh my gosh. But can we do anything about that? Really? Can you do anything about that? I don't think you can. I don't think you can. I don't think you should spend a lot of cycles worrying about that kind of stuff. There's probably other things you want to be interested in. Maybe there's something you haven't discovered yet. If you haven't exposed yourself to a lot of ideas, then you should do that. I always like the idea of changing your environment in order to shoot a new bearing. So when you're doing map and compass and you're doing land navigation, stuff like that, if you're in a valley and all you got is walls all around you from rocks and stuff and you can't see where you are, it's a good thing to get on top of that valley. Go get to a summit. Because once you're up there, your perspective changes. And when you're from there, you can orient your map. You can see what's going on. You can kind of get a feeling for the layout of the land. And from that new summit, you can shoot a new bearing. And from that bearing, you can, make a decision on the direction you're going. But right now, if you're feeling lost, it's probably because you're in a valley. And you need to get yourself on top of a summit. And keeping going with this metaphor, there's no better way to get up a summit than if you're motorized. Because walking uphill sucks. I don't care who you are. So And of course, this brings me back to the venerable TW200. I've had my TW200 for all of a month now. And because the weather's been ultra crap and there's been, new jobs, lots of stuff's been happening. So what do you do? What do you do? Well, if you can't ride your bike, you modify the bike. That's the idea. So I've been, changing things out on that particular bike. Hasn't changed since 1987. So I like things that have a massive data sample. So something has been unchanged since 87. And it's got its own, cult following. And go check out Mob Street, really good source of videos and stuff like that. Fortnite does a great description of the TW200 if you want to look into it. But I recommend that you should get one. But Sean, you said you haven't ridden it. Yes, I know. I know I haven't ridden the bike. But why? Why are you saying this? Well, for one thing, transportation is super important in like sort of a zombie apocalypse, falling skies kind of way. But I think that the other thing is that when you're on a bike, it's like when you're diving, which I've done a lot of, and it forces you to be present. It forces you to only think about what's going on around you. It forces you into this space here and now. Because if it doesn't, you'll die. So that is a huge motivator to be present, let me tell you. And once you get used to sort of disconnecting from these distracting elements, it can help your brain. Same with reading. When you're reading, it's hard to read and be distracted. You know what I mean? I mean, some people I imagine can do it where they read and they're thinking about something else while they're reading. But this is one of those reasons why reading is so important. And it's a little bit easier than meditating, but I think that reading is like a cousin to meditating. And you must often wonder, like, why is it so hard to read now? They say that nobody reads books. Why is that? Why is that exactly? And is that by design or is that by accident? Because now, where are we getting our information from? Well, everything comes from screens, Sean. Well, of course it does. Of course it does. But there's always books. There's always research that has been done already. And there's a huge hate on against books right now. And they're trying to get you to be so destabilized. The attacks on science, the attacks on everything but archaeology, the attacks on anything that you believe with any sort of conviction is out of control. So why is that? Why do they want you to think the world is a simulation? You know what I mean? This whole simulation thing, which is preposterous. I mean, the whole idea of simulation theory is just ridiculous on its face. What's it simulating, right? There's the base reality? Like, shut up. Okay, like, this is reality here and now. And if it's not the base reality, which is, again, preposterous on its face, it doesn't make any difference. Okay? Like, we're it. And you wind up with these, the Rocco's basilisk stuff and these thought experiments that twist people's brains up, and then soon they don't even, because if everything's just a simulation, then pretty soon nothing matters and you're not important, you're just a bunch of data, and you get into this weird nihilistic, materialistic, reductionistic, atheist headspace where nothing matters and you should just give up because you can't rationalize what you're doing. And you don't need to really rationalize what you're doing beyond what you feel, what your instinct is, what higher self and all that jazz is. I mean, anytime you get involved with a group, they're going to wind up controlling you. That's why I don't really want to, you want to have like a YouTube following, I suppose. But on the other hand, you want people to like live their own lives, make their own decisions. That's why monster hunting, as like on the Discord server, I talk about, making small groups, probably about 5 people, and role-playing groups and stuff like that, like with table and dice where you actually physically get together, make a character based on yourself, and then, you can run scenarios, which is a good time anyway. And you can't take this stuff too incredibly seriously, because if you do, you'll go nuts. And it's happened to a number of people, especially the more rational. Like, I've long had the theory that skepticism breeds madness. And these guys who get into this stuff and they start to do hard research and they're hard skeptics, once they start realizing that there's more to this than just, a bunch of idiots, and they start to realize, yeah, hey, wait a minute, there's real evidence there, their worldview starts to come apart a little bit, more than a little bit. And the pillars of reality, the pillars that their reality is built on, they get pulled away, and pretty soon their reality gets unstable and the whole thing comes crashing down. And you wind up stuck in a hose in the exhaust pipe on the other end of the car, and they find you on the side of the road. And this has happened. It's happened to a number of reporters over the years. And if you read books, you'd see that this is actually fairly common. And the more you investigate this stuff, it seems like the farther away from this Overton window, which whatever shape that is now looks like. So I would I would caution you on one hand, but on the other hand, it's like, well, you got two choices here. You got the possibility of madness, going out and looking at the reality for what it is or what you think it may be, or you become enslaved by this strange digital contraption, the static of the world, which, I wouldn't want that for anyone. So I have faith in you. I have faith in your ability to get out there in the world and do things on your own. And that's why I talk about the TW. That's why I think you should get a bike. They're only like $6,000. It's like a moped. It's pretty hard to hurt yourself on one. I mean, its top speed's 50 miles an hour. You take it to the North Pole, go anywhere on the thing, literally. So, and they retain their value like crazy. So, yeah, get a bike. And specifically, get a TW200 because, well, I don't think you'll regret it. I don't think you'll regret it. And as this channel goes on, you'll be seeing me going on more adventures and filming it and talking about it. But in the time being, you do need to realize that, like that Serenity Prayer, you need to recognize the things you cannot change and like how to tell the difference. Because it seems to me there's a whole lot of people that are trying to influence what you think and see. Now, something that has been happening right now in Portage County in Ohio, not Idaho, is that we're in the middle of what they call a flap, which is a Bigfoot sightings have been happening in a concentrated area. So that means that there's a world breach which has occurred, and it occurred historically in this area. Let me talk about this story here. It says multiple reports of a massive creature have been reported in Portage County, heading towards Trumbull County. It's normal for there to be Bigfoot sightings all over the United States. It's normal suddenly, but it's not normal to have multiple sightings in a small area in a short number of days, says Jeremy Byron, host of Bigfoot Society podcast. So, okay, yeah, the Bigfoot Society guys, they know that, yeah, they're seen all over the place. Byron has interviewed over 1,000 people about the subject and told Fox 8's Suzanne Stratford Tuesday these claims seem sincere. Like, who hoaxes this stuff? I would think that the hoax to legit report things got to be like 20, 30 to 1, probably greater. They're shook up, he said. They're very emotional and just want to stay anonymous, he said. The report started on March 6th with 2 encounters at Matula Center, followed by 2 more on March 9th at Garrettsville. A guy and his friend were hiking in the Headwaters Trail, saw a 10-foot Sasquatch, said Byron. When it was grunting at them, it turned his head and shoulders, not neck, which is an important detail. That's crazy. So these things don't really have a neck, which is wild. An older woman in Windham, who did not previously believe in Bigfoot, also saw something massive running in and out of the woods on March 9th. It's a hair-covered creature. It's on 2 legs, not walking like a bear, but like a human would. Interesting. The next report came from the Newton Township on March 10th from a man taking his dog outside at 4 a.m. It's always at night, eh? When you're in the shadow of the magnetic effects of the solar winds of the sun. I'm sure that's a part of this. So he's taking his German Shepherd outside. The dog, when it gets an odor, it starts freaking out. It lunges towards the woodland. The gentleman looks out there and sees a large black shadowing figure in the tree line about 9 to 10 feet tall, which is massive. Okay, that's huge. And the dog couldn't stop shaking. Yeah, interesting. Fox 8 asked if anyone took pictures, but Byron said the encounters only had a few seconds. The people were just outside doing things and had not prepared. And a cluster of reports like this had not happened since the 70s. And one of the most famous incidents occurred in Minerva, Ohio in August 1878, became known as the Minerva Monster. Interesting. Interesting. To this day, the Minerva Monster remains a mystery, and the current details of the Portage creature, just like the current details of the Portage creature. It's a great question. What's going on here? I made a maps, and it seems to be heading towards the east-southeast. Now, of course, there's the Bigfoot guys who will tell you that, well, they're migratory, which doesn't hold water for me. If these things are migratory, they would have a greater chance of being seen. They'd be seen during crossing roads. They get hit by trucks. They get shot. And a 10-foot creature, I mean, sure, it's kind of like a ghillie suit and stuff and they can hide, but they're not going to be able to hide that well. So at the time of this recording, that's an interesting flap that's going on there. And I wonder, so we got all these sightings, it's really concentrated, and all of a sudden they're just going to vanish as they do. And that's one thing about the Bigfoot monster, but they talk about, it's 10 feet tall. Now you'll hear reports of these things ranging anywhere from 3 feet tall to 18 feet tall. Is this all the same creature, or are we looking at different creatures here? And let's not forget that in Ohio as well, there's the Frogman Festival that's kicking off. which is interesting because the Loveland Frogman of Ohio is allegedly a legendary humanoid frog described as standing 4 feet tall, spotted in Loveland, Ohio, United States in 1972. The Loveland frog legend gained renewed attention with a Loveland police officer reported to a colleague he'd seen an animal consistent with the description of the frogman. After reporting the sighting in 2016, the second officer called a news station to report he had shot and killed the same creature some weeks after the incident and identified it as a large iguana that was missing its tail. Right. According to various legends, the creature was first spotted by a businessman traveling sales along an unnamed road late in 1955. And it happened in May, so in the spring. And it's interesting when you look. I've given a link to the police reports about the Loveland monster, but you know, in that previous Bigfoot sighting, they didn't talk about this Loveland thing. They didn't talk about that. They just, talk about this massive looming shape. And then they said, oh, there was other reports of, Bigfoot over here, but they want to keep it all separate. And I don't think it is. I think that there's something that's just tying all this together. And maybe it's because the Spielberg film is coming out that there seems to be such an intense focus in the media right now on UFOs. Like UFOs are what it's about, And what a great thing to have people see a UFO, because you can't really do much with it, can you? You can't investigate it. It's up in the sky. How do you go after it? So nobody talks about stuff that gets people into the bush. And even now, especially in Canada, they don't want you camping. This is bizarre to me, but they don't want you camping outside of campsites, which are a little more than like RV parks. Like you pull in, you got to pay $35 to sleep next to a picnic table, in a groom site. There's an outhouse. Some of them have showers. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. It's not really camping. The idea of camping is to go out into the middle of the wilderness and, sort of survive for a couple nights. That's what to get away. Not to, build a little forward operating base that you can drive to and camp out of your car. I mean, if you got a 4x4, sure, I guess it's better than staying maybe that's a good first step. But I think your goal here should be to go places where people are not. That's another reason why the bike is a good idea, to get into some moto camping, is you get up some of these long, crazy roads, even some abandoned roads. Maybe go find some abandoned towns somewhere. Just go where your heart calls you. See where it is. But I'm sure nobody's heart calls them to a campground. You know what I mean? And then they don't want you to go out there. They don't want you, you can't have a fire. Can't have a fire if you go out there because you burn down the wilderness. Safety first. They always gauge it like that, But it seems more and more restrictive. More and more like you can't access the park unless it's between these times and these times. You have to stay on the trails. You can't get out there and live as you're supposed to. And it's these subtle walls that are built up all around us. And I don't think I really agree with that. So I think you should probably get some sort of a method, maybe a truck, maybe a 4x4. They're more expensive. So, if you can afford one, that's great. But just about anyone can afford a bike. So, and, if you're that kind of a person, you want to use a mountain bike. I mean, I kind of hang back on that because, the world is pretty big and it's better to be motorized, really, especially if you're bringing gear. So even guys who do camping off of a bicycle will tell you, yeah, you can take more stuff with a motor for sure. But there's certain perks in between it. I would say that people who camp on bicycles are probably, that's pretty hardcore. So, but as things go, the point here is to get outside and to get to places where people are not, so that you and, one or two people or at least one person, or, you set up your reports with those of us on the Discord server to report your trips and see the adventures you go on. We want to know about this stuff. Come on by. Links in the description. Because we're getting into that season now where, it's going to be good to have your time to get out there into the bush and start to have these experiences yourself. And who knows what'll happen. But I think there's a lot more going on with UFOs because they got to land. They're not flying around here just to fly around. They're touching down, man. They're touching down. And when they do, we want monster hunters to be there on the ground. So there's a report coming in from Albert Dock in England, where these things disappeared with a pop. And this was Gideon Allen claims he spotted a classic flying saucer hovering at the Albert Dock. And he's got pictures of this. The classic flying saucer, which is an oval-shaped craft. I love how just even the idea of a flying saucer, the way it's all phrased. The world's made of words, man. It was hovering over Liverpool's Royal Albert Dock before disappearing with a pop. Now, disappearing with a pop. So it didn't, there's this weird buzzing sound and humming sound that sounds, some people say it sounds like a blowfly in a bottle, like an electrical buzz that happens. And that's because these things are generating some kind of they have some sort of a method that's going between dimensions. Now you go to the article, I've linked to it, and you can check out what it's about. But these things are traveling between worlds, and I don't mean like between realities or dimensions, however you want to phase that, but they like phase out of existence. These things aren't flying away. These aren't rocket ships. And I think that the way they're able to move within our reality, where they're making these 90 degrees turns and flying super low over the ground without tearing it up, it's because they're not 100% in our reality. And all the research, anyone who's, it backs this up. But we have no way to frame this. We have no way to actually consider, okay, well, nobody wants to come up with a theory about this, except for, well, there's those of us who have, and those that do, well, they don't get a lot of play. They don't get a lot of play. There's something going on here where these things are coming here, they're interacting with us, they're influencing us, they're trying to appear as gods, they're trying to influence our rich and powerful elite, they're speaking through mediums, they're giving advice, they're doing things to try to influence our culture. And the question is, why? Why? And people talk about angels and demons, and these are just old worlds for outworld beings. They're good, they're angels. They're bad, they're demons. And they all work for God. Apparently some of the UFOs say that we work for something that you'd call God. Why would we only call it God? If it's not God, you'd call it God too, right? But it was just because we're so primitive, right? Well, we're getting better every day. And I think there's going to come to a point where we're going to be like, I think we're going to have to meet God. I think we're going to need to talk to God and not his messenger. Well, no, we're his messenger. Are you now? Are you? Because I'm not sure you are. And this is our world. Earth belongs to the humans. And for those who say, well, that's pretty arrogant for you to... No, man, this is our planet. We have the planet. And if we allow it to be taken away from us, that's a totally different thing. But it seems like maybe that's what all this lack of conviction is about. It's trying to get people to just give up their rights, to give up the right to this world, to this life, to this reality. So we bend the knee to some like outworld entity. No, that's not what we're doing. That's not what humanity is. We are a great and powerful species. And for however we got here, we're here now. And it's up to us to not allow ourselves to be lulled into some sort of distracted sleep, to have our essence taken by the dark crystal so that the Skeksis of the universe would drink our essence to live forever. That's not what we're going to be. That's not what the vision that I have for this reality. And even now, they got this, did you hear about this one here? There's a former general who's involved with the UFO stuff. He's missing. The FBI is searching for the former head of an infamous and classified research lab at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, William Neil McCaslin. At the time of this recording, he's still missing. A retired U.S. general disappeared on Friday in Albuquerque while leaving his home without his phone or watch. It's interesting they included a watch there. And you know how many people even wear watches anymore? Oh, I've just got my phone. That's wild to me that nobody wears a watch, I'm a big redundancy guy. The Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office has issued a silver alert for a 68-year-old man who one Facebook user claims to have spotted on a whitewashed trailhead in Piedra Lisa Canyon. McCaslin also reported to have an unspecified medical condition. Our priority is finding Mr. Caslin's safety, Sheriff John Allen said in a press release. Our investigators and search teams are working continuously and we're coordinating closely with our local, state, and federal partners. Now, it's interesting that, he's got an undisclosed medical condition. What's that, like heart palpitations? He's got because it sort of hints, doesn't it? Oh, he's probably got some sort of mental problem. There's nothing to see here. He's just this guy who used to be involved with this stuff, and now he's vanished in Albuquerque. But I'm sure there's a rational explanation for this. There's always a rational explanation for everything. Yeah. Unless, of course, that rational explanation flies in the face of everything we're being told, which is we're being caged and farmed by creatures who are seeking to control us, control our planet, and harvest our energy for some kind of food. It's becoming more and more likely that we're being farmed. Now, a while back, you may have heard of MJ12, the Majestic documents, right? Everyone was like, oh no, it came out, and it made big news. Stanton Friedman published his analysis of the documents in 1996. I got a copy of his work. Great work. Recommend you pick it up. The top secret magic Operation Majestic 12 and the United States government's UFO cover-up. And right after these documents leaked and were dropped, there was this massive concerted effort to prove forward these were fake. These were all fake. Oh yeah, it's all scam. None of that's real. And the stuff that is obviously fake, they never bothered to discredit. But when something comes out and there's suddenly this huge effort that's put forward to say that it's fake, that's a bit of a tell that maybe it's not fake. Maybe it's not. So, I'll give you a bit of background here. In the mid-1980s, a UFO researcher, Jamie Chandra, came into possession of an undeveloped roll of 35mm film that contained an 8-page document intended as a briefing for President Dwight Eisenhower. Its tech discussed a secret 12-member group of top-level scientists, military leaders, and intelligence officials convened by President Harry Truman called Majestic 12 that were responsible for recovering crashed UFOs and their occupants in the wake of a crash of an unidentified object near Roswell in 1947. So that's the idea. In the years since, UFO researcher and top nuclear physicist, it's important to remember that, Stanton Friedman published his 1996 analysis of the documents, and he had more documents relating to, if not right, referencing Majestic 12 itself. And has been recovered through various means, often through official channels, and the classified status of individual documents expired. Now, this was totally discredited, but in February of 2026, Substack author MJ12 Logic noticed 3 of these recovered Majestic 12 documents were stamped with a number. That number is 834021 as an identifying report number. Curious to see if the number was present on any other government documents, he ran a search for it through the Central Intelligence Agency's Freedom of Information Act portal. The Freedom of Information Act portal yielded 345 pages worth of Operation Paperclip intelligence documents that had been declassified in June 2022, each bearing the same 834021 stamp as the report number. These findings provide additional evidence of the MJ12's existence during the late 40s and 50s. MJ Logic concludes in the Substack article, it's virtually impossible to logically reconcile the supporting evidence with the idea that Majestic 12 was just some paperwork invented during the 1980s. I've got a link to all his research there, and it's pretty compelling stuff. There's a lot of references there which show that this phenomena, whatever it is, this phenomena that the group of people think are outworld beings, they don't think this is concrete. They don't think these things are flesh and blood. And now you've got the apologists. You got the people coming forward, which I don't agree with at all, saying, are the UAPs are nuclear sentinels? So David Marks began a series of opinion pieces of historically and timely import with sobering reminder of how on July 16, 1945, the world changed forever. Marx discerns an accompanying pattern of us being surveilled by whom? And they're saying that maybe that's... maybe it's good, that we've got these big brother aliens that are looking after us, because clearly we're too stupid to, look after ourselves. It's nice that we have these aliens who are controlling our nuclear program, which anything, as a rule of thumb, anything that seeks to control you is seeking to enslave you. That's just a fact. So, I think that they're probably a little concerned that the humans have nukes, because I bet you nukes screw them up. I mean, there's been reports that, nukes have taken out their ships before. They maybe blow a hole in more than just this reality. Maybe when a nuclear bomb goes off, it rips a hole in multiple layers in different dimensions and things like that. This is probably why they're really concerned about nuclear war. And the funny thing is a lot of these scientists that were involved in that program, like Oppenheimer and all these guys, they're a bunch of ghosty dudes. Have you seen these guys? They got that spirit medium stare on the go. And the dudes at NASA, the JPL labs, they're all doing that same stuff too. They're trying to commune with outworld beings and get other information and glean knowledge from higher sources so they can, get this information. And I don't know. Ever since The Witch of Endor, it's always been about a phone call, hasn't it? From Ouija boards to seances, man. It's always about information. It's never about throwing fireballs. So I find that to be curious and something that you need to look at. And something that other people have been looking at is all these other sources they're finding for these UFOs. Like a Mars Curiosity rover photographed a UFO, which this is wild. There's a photo of this. You should check it out. There's definitely something in the photo. But a recent photo snapped by NASA's Mars Curiosity rover shows what appears to be a classic flying saucer. I love how they say, like, unidentified craft. It's got to be a flying saucer. You know, that's the key word to make you automatically just preload you with the idea that this is crazy. It's a flying saucer. Who believes in flying saucers? And it's in the sky over the red planet. An intriguing image was reportedly taken on Feb 22nd in the Gale crater. Eagle-eyed anomaly hunters, scouring NASA photos for strange details, quickly pounced on the photo when they noticed a remarkable symmetrical dark object seeming cruising through the sky above the Martian horizon. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. So, what's that then? Is that, swamp gas from the Martian swamps? But you'll see even now through the world being made of words that they're trying to control that. They're trying to control how you see these things. And there was another, image analysis is a big deal because it's really the only evidence we have. But there was a guy, they're talking about these orbs now. Because if it's not a flying saucer, it's got to be an orb, which are these weird lights that appear. We get them on film. Sometimes they don't show up normally. They only show up on film. And there's the Sphere Network, and there's a lot of ideas here about what these things can be. But there's a green orb image extracted from a viral social media clip attributed to Chris Bledsoe. And Chris Bledsoe, we've talked about him before. He's this dude who can apparently conjure these things. And it's generated widespread speculation that the object displayed an internal lettering or symbols representing a communication of non-human intelligence. Now, this is some wild stuff. You look at the frames. A forensic image analysis of the green orb still frame using established digital forensic techniques includes channel isolation, edge detection, HSV analysis, and principal component analysis. The results indicated that the observed structure are consistent with computational photography artifacts, compressed effects, and perceptual illusion rather than a physical object or communicative signal. This case, however, demonstrates how smartphone imagery pipelines and social media compression can produce compelling but misleading visual anomalies. So this article goes on about it saying none of this is true, blah, 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 blah. But you need to check this out. And the amount of effort, again, that's being put into something that, this isn't real. This isn't real. None of this is real. But, we still got 4 frames where there's lettering, which appears inside of these orbs that this guy is conjuring out of the air, who's healing people, who's doing all sorts of paranormal stuff. And the same guy says that Easter of this year, there's going to be some really heavy stuff that occurs from the lady. His lady now, not the lady of Fatima or the lady who's appeared a number of times, or Hathor, or any of the other images of these so-called gods and beings that are only here to help us. They're only here to help us. And they can appear to people in massive groups, and they can appear psychically. So why in the world are they hiding letters inside of orbs? I mean, just talk, bro. Like, just come out with it. Or is this all just some... There's got to be some reason for that. There's got to be some kind of weird discrediting thing that's going on there that kind of makes me be a bit, maybe they can't. Maybe there's some sort of a limiting thing about how the human brain works and how we interact with our reality that makes them afraid of us or makes it impossible for them to really appear to us. They can only appear to certain people. It's an interesting idea. And moving forwards with this, I've long since noted that things that affect our consciousness. Now, we know this to be true. Meditation, reading, research, all these things affect reality. It affects your mind. It affects your consciousness. And your consciousness is a major key player of reality. Perception controls thought, controls reality. Well, or rather, thought controls perception, or your perception controls reality. Or how you see reality, which is not so much like, hey, if I believe myself out of prison, I won't be there. More like, you can have a spider on the table. If one guy's terrified of spiders, he's going to be in hell. If the other guy's fascinated by spiders, he's really interested in what's going on. It's the same environment. It's all based on your thought pattern. So, but there could be more to it than that. And now, of course, they're trying to take all these lies that have a good chunk of truth in them and try to spin it in their own way. Now, of course, there's a new theoretical model, which has been modeled by Uppsala University materials scientist called Maria Strom, proposes that consciousness is the fundamental basis of reality, not just a byproduct of brain activity. In her AIP advanced paper, Strom argues that consciousness exists first and gives rise to time, space, and matter. Bold claim. Bold claim. Strom argues that consciousness exists first, drawing on early quantum physics such as Einstein, Schrödinger, Heisenberg, and Planck. Her framework involves individual minds as expressions of a shared field of consciousness underlying the universe. It blends quantum physics with philosophical traditions that view reality as fundamentally interconnected. She suggests that the phenomena often considered mysterious, such as telepathy or near-death experiences, could potentially arise from this universal field rather than supernatural cases. Now, of course, Rupert Sheldrake has been talking about the morphic field for quite some time, and it's a little annoying to me that rather than admitting that people like Rupert Sheldrake were right, that they'll just come out with this, some physicist who they're going to promote their work instead and make it look like it's all new because nobody reads books. Nobody does their own research. They only drink from the same fire hose, and if you don't know what's going on, then you're only interested in what's happened in the last 2 weeks. No one even talks about like the Vegas shooter anymore. Nobody talks about these events which have occurred. Nobody even knows anything about spiritualism other than the fact that, it's something that happened and Harry Houdini discredited it, and even though his wife made contact with a spirit who said it was Harry Houdini, which later then she recounted and said, no, it wasn't. And then just before her death, she said it was. Weird. Why would this, there's a lot of really wild, the Schofield experiments. Nobody talks about that stuff, but it's all evidence. It's all stuff which has occurred in our culture, in our world. And why is it that we're not thinking about this? Why is it we're all being trained to have the memory of a goldfish? Why is it that nobody encourages reading anymore? Because there's no money in it? The publishing industry is something we're all going to try to destroy? Well, books are a thing. Books are important. More lives have been changed by books than by TV shows, I'll tell you that. And even the great TV shows like Star Trek, which, the original Star Trek was phenomenal. Now, not so much. Not so much. And everything gets corrupted over time, but books have a tendency to stay. They can come out with a new edition, but if you got the old edition, you've got access to that information. It's kind of like, it reminded me when you had long-playing records, the vinyl records, then they had tapes, which were temporary, and then tapes gave way to, first it went records, then it went to 8-tracks for a hot minute, and they made some money with those. And then 8-tracks became tape cassettes, and then tape cassettes became CDs, and CDs were the king for a long time, but they were a little bit too permanent. And of course, why even have CDs if you can just stream a service, right? Why do that? So now nobody has anything. Now you just have the internet, and you have to connect to that in order to have access to anything. Unlike books, which cover the shelves around me right now. Because the power goes out, what have you got? What do you have when the power goes out? Have you got the ability to move? Do you have the ability to feed yourself? Do you have the ability to educate your mind? Do you have the ability, if you forgot everything tomorrow, how would you, reload? How would you rebuild? And would be a nice idea to give you some idea what kind of books you should have. Now, the other thing too, which is a handy thing to mention here, is that we don't actually know what causes interest. We don't. We know what causes outrage, and we can stimulate outrage and make people want to know more, but not like genuine interest. Like no one's really sure why little kids all love dinosaurs. Why do some kids get into airplanes and other kids get into hockey and other kids get into bugs? Why is that? We don't know. There's certain trends which occur, but we don't know what generates interest. And there's an inner voice, an inner drive, which emerges when you're in a quiet space like meditation or the wilderness or out on your own, where the noise of the world is able to fall away and you're able to listen to yourself. You're able to listen to that interest which is within your inner core. And that's what I want you to do. I think you could go so much farther if you just listen to your own instincts. Not in all things. I mean, verify it. Do some science. Do some reading for sure. Figure it out. But you don't have to verify it with a group. Because the minute you're involved in groups, everything starts to get a bit weird. Everything starts going a bit off. So you don't need that. You don't need that. It's good to have like-minded people you can talk to, but not a gang that you follow or a mob or that you're involved with or a cult that you get sucked into. And there's cults of personality. There's cults of religion. And they all seek to give you an identity. You should make your own identity and forge it from there. And most of the things that I always encourage you to be fairly independent. That's why the bike thing. That's why the book thing. That's why the meditation thing. Don't be a slave. Escape the cage that they're trying to put you in. And make no mistake, they're trying to put you in a cage. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to escape that. So that's why the points I list out about, not talking about it, trying to make up your own mind. But when you listen to the words that I'm saying, although these videos aren't, cleverly stitched together and shock cutted everywhere, and they don't have AI providing extra stimulus, I think you can tell that I'm telling you the truth. This is all true. Every single word I'm telling you right now, I believe wholeheartedly. I think that you have the ability to be greater than you can possibly know. Not greater than you know, greater than you can possibly know. You're more than your physical body. That's a very generalized statement. It's a powerful one, though. And the only way you're going to figure out how that is true for you is if you can disconnect from that media, if you can listen to yourself and try to figure out what it is that your own being is trying to tell you.